Hello everyone. So I'm here with a short video to go over the details of the homework just in case they weren't clear in class because I did add a little something to maybe make things easier for you all. So for our homework, there's two files. There's a zip file and a JPEG. First, we're going to look at the zip file because that's something you have to get. It is actually, let me minimize this here. It's the same file that we used when we were in class, right? So it's this UV Workshop 1, and it has 3 different scene files. We used these two in class. The one that says homework is your homework, right? So just want to make that clear. Um, when you open it up, it will have a frame that's pretty simple. Um, and you'll see that there's, despite the fact that it's, actually, let's close that for a moment. There we go. It's basically a slightly more complex box than what we had in class. There's a little bit of mild, not even beveling, just a little bit of detail, not much. So they're all told the polygons, it's less than 100 polygons, but there's a couple things I neglected to do because I used this last year when we were teaching from home and I forgot to update the file. So for example, to make things a little bit easier for yourself, you're going to want to go to Edit, Delete by Type History. That will help you get to this here. If you don't do that, you can actually see the old UV mapping. So those are all the various things that I did when we were going over in class to UV map it, which is a lot more than you're going to have to do because I was going back and forth, back and forth. So delete by type history gets rid of all of that. Also, you'll see that I left the UVs on here. So obviously you need to make your own. If you try to use these, I will know it. You can't just hand these in. This is too specific, right? That there's no handing this in and thinking it is going to pass. So what you'll need to do is, in order to make a new set, is go to create and then planar. And when you do that, it comes out like this, right? And so your homework is you start with this, and you can see how it's kind of taken a picture of the front. But of course, the sides and the back are not included because they're not stretched out. And also this gets lost right here. And so then you need to make certain decisions about what you're going to do. If we look at my finished version, you can see that I actually took the back. I believe this is the back. Yep. And I actually just cut it out. I used the cut tool. I would select the edges and I hit cut. And I cut the whole thing out just to be its own thing over here. And I did the same thing for this front piece, leaving the frame, like the major part of the frame, as its own thing to be dealt with in its own way. So this is over here, this is for back here, and then all of this is most of the rest of this. And I believe this is upside down like this because I think I have it like backwards or something. But otherwise, separating these into different things, it means that when you export this to Photoshop, the center here, there's nothing there. This is the center. You don't have to do it like this. That's just what I chose to do. All right. But remember, again, you're going to have to hit that planar button and start from scratch and make your own decisions about which edges you're going to select to start cutting apart. Are you going to just go in here? And double clicking is not going to work because, I do not want to bring Dreamweaver into here. Double clicking will, get you whole edge loops like this. You are going to have to individually select edges. Now, once you get your, once you've done your own UV layout, all right, let's say you get it done. Interesting. Sorry, I'm trying to undo. The undoing wasn't working because I was in this UV mode, so it was undoing UVs I did. I needed to go into object mode so it would undo outside stuff, meaning like when I did the projection. So if your undo isn't working, right click, go into object mode, and then start clicking undo. So let's say you get your UVs done and they're great. You're really happy with them. And you're confident that you can bring these into Photoshop to use. Then great. You do as we did in class, image, UV snapshot, you create a UV snapshot, and that's what you bring into Photoshop or whatever program you're using. It shows up in this images folder. It's gonna, let's say it's this one, or no, it's this one because it's got my name on it, UV Benvenuto, right? So you've got your UVs and you bring them into your editing program and you go ahead and you paint some stuff on the frame and you put a picture in here and you put something else here. You know, you go ahead and you use it, and that's fine. But what if you get done with this, and like you've done it, it's the assignment, and you're not freaked out because I told you not to be upset, but it's maybe kind of a mess. And you're wondering, is this going to work when I'm in Photoshop? Is this going to do what I need it to in Photoshop? So here's what you can do. You can instead, save this file as, please, like save as, you know, frame homework, your last name, but preserve this old file. Don't save over the one that says frame homework, right? So you get done and you say save scene as, and we call it homework. Benvenuto. And it gives you that message. So we do that, but you're not super happy with how your UVs turned out. Well, then what you can do is you can go back to the original frame homework. It will have the ones that I did. And you have the image that I provided for the UVs up on Blackboard. Nope, that's not Blackboard. That's a crossword puzzle. This is Blackboard. This JPEG right here is the out UVs that I made, right? So if you do the UVs your own way and you make them the way you want and you try it out and you see if it can work. But if you're thinking to yourself, oh no, I don't want to use this in Photoshop, I don't think it's going to work very well, you can kind of halfway through switch to mine to use for the painting, right? To use for the work in Photoshop and to bring back in here, just so you can see how this communicates with this. And just let me know in your comments, I used your UVs for the Photoshop portion, right? So when you submit it, make sure you have clearly labeled the ones that are yours, right? The scene file that's yours. Make sure you label it with your name. But then let me know when you submit this in Blackboard, let me know in the comments, I did my own UVs, they're this file, but I wanted to, use your UVs in Photoshop. So that is an option for you. You can't use my UVs and submit them as yours. Like, you have to unfold your own and give that a good old college try. But if you get halfway through and you're like, oh, and you feel stuck, I still want you to learn how this communicates with this. I still want you to be able to go into Photoshop or GIMP or whatever and paint away and see how this idea communicates with this idea. So you may end up with a couple different scene files and a couple different UV out files, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Do that. We can have more than one type of file in here. Just make sure you're clear to me, which ones are group 1 and which ones are group 2. Whatever, however we want to name them, as long as I can tell which goes to which. All right, and again, make a note when you submit things, because you can do that. You browse and you submit a file. You have to do the whole zip file. Don't just do one image. But you can say, I used your UVs when in Photoshop. My UVs are under frame homework. Right? That way I can get this information. When you submit this, I'll have the information about which files are which. All right, so hopefully that clears up any confusion that we had. Also, remember that up on YouTube, I do have a channel, Shipwreck Stuff, and then under playlist, there's this one for graphics and animation 1. And scroll down a little ways, and you'll see some stuff about UV Workshop 1 and 2. Not this is the old homework. But UV Workshop 1 and 2 will give you information on attaching textures and doing UV on mapping. It's its own thing. It's a little bit more condensed than class. You can also, watch the classes. It should be live now. That's over in here, recordings. There we go. So this is what we did this last week. The only difference is this has people asking questions and we go off on tangents. For some people, I think the review videos are a little bit more condensed, and so a little bit more straightforward than class, where we can end up on different lines of thinking. So, but whichever one you'd like to use, they will be available to you. And also, especially for this week, if you have any questions, let me know right away. Email me right away, and I can set up times with you guys to sort of walk you through things. A couple people have already taken advantage of this, and I think it helps a lot to answer the very specific questions, because normally I would see you in class and be able to look over your shoulder and then you could just ask a question. Now you have to reach out to me. You have to purposely email me and set up a time if you have that kind of question. All right, so hopefully that gives you a clear view of what we're doing for this assignment. Again, this is our first crack at doing UVs, and UVs are not easy. They're not they're the frame may look simple, but it's not simple to unroll UVs for this. So, you know, take it for what it is, a first practice at this idea.